And people say, "Oh, you're so brave," and I was like, "Oh, this is the smart thing to do. I feel comfortable at home. Why walk into the lion's den?" Because that's how that was my perception of why go into the lion's den when I can stay. And then I got to take my troops with me. I got to bring my, like I'll just stay here and just, we'll take care of it here. And it worked out really well. And I a midwife for every mother.
So you have the different points of views up here, but it's important for you to understand that home birth is not for everybody. So there's no one size fits all to this. Everybody's situation is not going to be the same. We all have different predisposed situations. One of you may have a high risk factor that needs to be managed. And just like you interview, say, how you get different estimates for someone to paint your home, or you go around and try different nail technicians or different mechanics. You kind of got to do the same for this. So if you know that you are going to be in a non-home environment to birth, because let's be clear, there are a lot of professionals of color who buy into institutionalized medicine. So just because a person is of color or looks like you doesn't mean that they are the right provider for you. You have to ask the right questions. You have to interview. You have to shop around. Just like your provider is chosen for you, you know that you can choose your own provider. I don't want this provider. I want this provider. And if it's in your network, then you can choose your provider. Just because it's assigned to you doesn't mean you have to have it. So just like you shop around and look at different people who do different things for your home, for your car, different daycares you may want to put your child in, you kind of got to do the same for this. There's some homework that you have to do. So there's some self-responsibility that goes into this as well. It's just not everybody doing the work for you. Some of this work you got to be ready to do for yourself if you want the best outcome for you, because what works for me may not work for you.
Thank you. My brain is buzzing, and it's like I got a couple questions. I guess I'll do two, but this is the first, and it's based off of my lived experience as a father. Right, I've had 3 amazing young men, birthed into this world by amazing women. As women who live in this maternal health space, who work with women in their transition into motherhood, what insight can you give to males or men or the partners of women or persons that are undergoing birth? How should, I'm gonna be candid, particularly Black men, be showing up in their intimate relationship, but just what can the Black men in these relationships do to better support their partners through the birthing process? Like, what are some best practices that you all have seen or that you all feel could be more enhanced, right, as we live in the system that we're seeing these disparities in Black maternal health?
Well, you said it, manifest, showing up. Okay? Showing up at the prenatal, showing up for everything, showing up for healthy food before you conceive, showing up for healthy lifestyles, healthy emotional life, and support. Involving themselves in all of the education, being there if possible at as many appointments as you can, read something, and be there as a sounding board when making those decisions, making those interviews, going around and talking to people. That person, So, hey, if it don't feel good, let's step, and empowering, their partner in that way. I can't believe I've been up here this long and didn't say Happy Black Breastfeeding Week, y'all. And so a lot of times the male gendered, problem solvers, right? So sometimes in the middle of the night, breastfeeding might not be going really well. So this is the role of the dad. Do not say, I can fix this, let me run down to the Walgreens or CVS and come back with a can of something. No. So please don't do that. but say, you know, baby, I'm so proud of you for doing this. I'm here with you. What can I do? Can I bring you something to drink? Can I bring you a cool cloth or a warm cloth or, you know, a foot bath? So really nurturing, really what Taj was just saying, what she does for her moms. Every mother needs a Taj. You know, being that support person, a sounding board, a listening board, and then not trying to solve, particularly around human milk feeding, because it's not, it can be a challenge. And so don't say, let me fix it by bringing in a breast milk substitute. But let's say, let me fix it, let me provide you some comfort measures until we can get expert help for you.
So to add on to that, now is the time for men to really come into their position as being protectors. We talk about protect Black women, right? So this is what it looks like. It looks like having these important conversations with your partner. It looks like you asking questions. What is it that you need? And it looks like you said, preconceiving. Creating a healthy environment, not just an outward environment, but an environment for you both, because you're still going to be lovemaking, so your body needs to be intact as well, because what you're putting inside of your woman is going inside to your child. So all of those things are important when we talk about protecting Black women. It's not just being masculine and knocking things over and, you know. Now is the time for the man to be the actual protector, or the spouse or the partner or whatever the non-birthing person is. You're going to have to step up and be that protector. And it's not just for the brothers, it's for whatever your relationship looks like. So I want to make that clear. So whoever is the non-birthing person, because the birthing person is going to be tired, they're going to be busy, they're going to be working on themselves inwardly, making sure that their environment is right for giving birth. Now is the time for the non-birthing person to be the protector, to step up and ask the questions. You need to be working together, sitting down, writing things down. What questions would you like to ask? Or what questions would you like to ask? You need to go in there with the list. You need to go in there with your concerns as you shop around and as you interview different people. Now is the time for the non-birthing person to really be hands-on and protect their partner slash spouse, or, you know, may not be a partner or spouse, could be a mama and a daughter, you know, whoever the non-birthing person is at the time needs to step up and be the protector and ask the right questions and provide the right environments, because birthing person is going to be busy. Birthing person is going to be in pain. Birthing person is just going to be inundated with what they got going on inside the womb. So when we talk about protecting Black women, that is what we're talking about. We're not just talking about going out and slapping somebody. We're talking about really stepping up and making sure that the environment that our birthing person is going into has what they need. That is what protecting Black women is like.
I want to add, I want to start with, I love Black men. Okay, let's just start there. So this is not a man-hating comment, okay? But we have to understand that most women experience things like domestic violence for the first time in pregnancy, okay? So what can men do? Yes, it's a very stressful time. It's a very stressful time. Is work on yourself. Work on yourself so that you don't become that statistic, because it's real. It's very real in our communities. The other thing I want to share is, if I had $1 for every time a woman approached me and said, I want a home birth, or I want to birth at a birth center, or I want to hire a doula, but my partner, he's not into that. He wants to be the one that's there for me, or he doesn't think a hospital, he doesn't think a home is safe. Guess what? It's not his birth, men. It's not your birth. It's not your experience. So you have to kind of learn how to be in that support role. So right, as men, they're taught to be that leader and to have that alpha energy and to be the protector and to have a plan. But birth is not predictable. Yes, there's a lot of variability, and it's not your thing. Women used to birth collectively in a tribe with support that was extensive. We've lost that. So women need other women, and women need women that look like them. So it's not that they don't care for you at this moment. You are very important, but it's just not your time to kind of be that front and center. It's that time for you to be of support, and you can support by supporting yourself or literally picking up a book. My favorite book for partners is The Birth Partner, and that one, if you don't care to go to a childbirth education class, which I do recommend, which Kaya has available here locally, then pick up that book and educate yourself on what your role is, because men just want to know, well, if I don't fit in that way, then how can I fit in? So play your position. There's a position to be played. You just have to learn what that position is, and so you will feel like you're still important, which you are, but it's just not your time. Yeah.
I just want to quickly piggyback. So much, this is all real information that you're getting. I would just say that the culture of seeing it as your pregnant partner is going through something that is outside of you, I think needs to be dismantled, where you can really, really integrate yourself into their experience. And I think that's all of what's already been said. Like, if your partner is feeling pain or they're hungry or they're whatever, get it for them, nurture them, pamper them. There's information that the way that your questions come from information. So get information. Like she's saying, The Birth Partner, that's a very seminal book. It's written actually for doulas, or for the partner, but a lot of doulas use it in their training. That's a great book. I would say ask your provider. If you're like, I want to be doing more, what could I be doing to support this? Also talking to healthy parents, like models of fatherhood or partnership or whatever it is that you aspire to, ask them. Like, how was it for you? What were you thinking? What did you do? Because if we're saying, babies thrive in community, mothers thrive in community, fathers, partners, role models. We learn from each other, not just from social media, not just from our own brains and what we make up. Let's talk to the people we see around us that inspire us. And I'll say about a doula, I've yet to hear any partner ever say, I wish my doula wasn't there. The same people who be like, why do I want a doula here? That's just gonna disrupt our intimacy, our vibe. And it's no, now you have a solid third on this team. This person will normalize what's normal. This person will advocate for you when there is, reiteration. Something needs to be repeated to you. You don't understand. You don't know what's next. You need soothing. You want to help her, but you don't know where to put your hands. A doula has your back, and they will leave the room if you ask them to leave the room. Their feelings will not be hurt. They're reading the room just like you. They're centering mama. So we're saying so much. I just think the important things to take away is that gathering information, showing up for appointments and all of that, you'll have questions, and ask your questions, especially to your partner. What does she need?
Well, thank you. So I have one more question, and I'm gonna, try to keep this brief because we're, I don't want to take all of the time. But the thought that's been resonant for me in all of the work that we do around social justice is that often folks like to put particular social inequities in an island unto itself, right? For example, affordable housing is a thing over here, but food justice is another thing over there, right? And so if you're doing that work, people get confused, well, I do both, right? It's intersectional. And people get glossy-eyed when you're no, all of these things are important, right? So I contextualize that statement for you all as Black maternal health workers. What are some of the other social determinants of health that impact this space, right, that often don't get discussed, right? Because I know folks like to say, okay, we need to focus on mom, and that's important, that is the priority. But what are some of the other things that are circling around mom that we don't get an opportunity to really discourse about?
I'd like to start off that one off. first of all, human milk in the food movement, human milk is the first food. So it's absolutely centered, the base, the bottom, in the center of food justice. And talk and the workplace, because we know that the vast majority of women of color are full-time workers outside of their homes, and to their full-time work inside them. Hello, it's back. Not having the time that's needed for your body to recover, much less. And it's so, we're in Virginia, let's be real, let's talk about it. We have a long history of drop that baby in the row and keep rowing, and we still have that same mentality. Like, so much of the capitalism of this country is built on the systems that were developed during the chattel slavery era, and we all still working like that, And so not having paid family leave, not being, not having, family leave to be able to, for your body to recover, for you and your baby to bond, to establish human milk. And then it's like, well, we're trying to get people to breastfeed and they don't have a place to live. They housing instability. So, Taj mentioned, some people come to her place to birth because they don't feel like their space is adequate, or, so all of that is real. So it's, and that's why I like the name of your place, Whole. You have to approach the whole individual, because, the whole Maslow cycle, the whole hierarchy of needs, like you got to take care of those basic needs first before you can move out. So I don't see how anybody could not see that the social determinants of health are all connected to this. When it's gunfire in your neighborhood and your cortisol levels shoot up, and they're supposed to come back down, but if it shoot up again the next day, it doesn't come back down the same way it did the day before, and eventually your cortisol levels are just up high all the time. And science has had to show us that, that has an effect on, the neonate, the baby in the womb is extremely sensitive to those stress hormones. So all of that is safety, housing, work environment. A lot of people, I'm gonna just keep talking about breastfeeding because all the rest of y'all talk about birth. Don't feel like, well, I can't breastfeed because I gotta go right back to work. So what's the point? And the point is, human milk is dose responsive. Every little sip counts. If you can only breastfeed for while you're in the hospital or at Taj's center, then plan to breastfeed for those 3 to 4 days. And if you can feel like you can only manage to breastfeed while you're home on maternity leave, then plan to breastfeed for those 6 to 8 weeks, or 4 days, or 5 days. And guess what? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You continue to breastfeed. If you give your milk once a day, I call it vitamin nursing, and your body will respond. If that's all you can get your vitamins in, give your baby those vitamins. If you're working 2 jobs and you really only get to spend 4 or 5 hours with your baby, put your baby beside you and provide, give him the vitamins from your body, because I call it double D pharmacy. The double D pharmacy is always at work. And before mom even knows that she's been exposed to any kind of virus, the body kicks into gear and starts making the medicine for real, y'all. For real. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, yeah, I didn't know I was getting sick, but my milk changed color. Now, if you're expressing your milk by hand or with a pump, you'll see those changes. And she's like, my milk changed color. And then 3 days later, I was sick, but I knew my baby was protected. Relactation. Could everybody just say that with me? 1, 2, 3. Relactation.
Relactation.
Okay? Relactation. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm finished.
Relactation.
Even if you don't start off breastfeeding, or even if you breastfed for those 6 weeks until you had to go back to work, and then, God bless the people in Southwest Virginia, a flood comes, and you are trapped in your house for who knows how long, put the baby to the breast. Keep putting the baby to the breast. Your body will respond. The younger your baby is, the faster it will respond. But even if you didn't breastfeed at all, 15 years, 17 years, yes, 17 years, Katrina on Monday. I will never forget August the 29th. Oop, my trauma coming up here. If you're stuck in the roof, you're stuck in the hand.
Did y'all hear what she said? If you're stuck in the attic, put your baby to the breast. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. I'll just, yeah, let's clap for our sister. I have twins. My first babies were twins, and I'll attest to what she's saying, where the milk changes, because I literally would see that, like when two times, one got sick and the other was well, one got sick, the other was well, and I would see the change in my breast milk. More colostrum for my sick baby, more fat for my growing baby. So that's a real thing. I also just wanted to quickly say, with introducing your baby, giving your baby whatever milk you can, initially you really are setting that baby's like microbiome, and I don't know if, how many people are familiar with that term, but it's really about the biodiversity of our GI tracts, and that's the beginning and end of us all. Like our digestive systems, our immunity, it's the way that we digest everything afterwards. So even if you think you're going to give your baby formula or things may change down the road, you are sealing that baby's whole GI tract with all the diversity flora of a microbiome that is healthy, that is well, that is uniquely catered to your child. Your child, what they need, their vitamins, their minerals, the fat content, all of it. So I just wanted to hype up the breastfeeding, not just birth this time. Yeah, you're welcome.
So my intersectionality, is that the word? Okay. Is mental health and birth work. Okay? So before the birth trauma even happens, there's usually, I say that it's an opportunity to heal trauma that you've experienced perhaps beforehand. So your mental health has to be checked through. All the trauma you've had will probably present itself at your birth, just as an opportunity for you to put that to rest, literally, okay? For you to heal it. So I work with women proactively, but sometimes not, right? And we're working through things like rape, homelessness, sexual abuse, instability in the home, childhood trauma. All of that will affect your birth. So I sit in that intersection, and there's no way that those two can be separated.
So
It's okay.
I noticed something while I was talking earlier. I saw some eyebrows go up and saw some frowns. And we'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room, okay? Because this is 2022. Let me face y'all. So for me as a birth worker, in addition to all of the things that we just talked about that intersect and that matter when we talk about birth work, we talk about home justice, we talk about food justice, environmental justice, gun laws, all of that stuff. All of that matters, right? But what I have noticed as a birth worker is that there is a new concern that is coming up, and that's with people who do not identify as female and women getting pregnant and giving birth. What I have noticed, first of all, it doesn't matter what I believe. What I believe is for me. It's for my life and for myself. Anybody else can believe whatever they want to believe, and they can be whomever they want to be. I don't have a problem with that. Let's just start there. What I'm seeing in the birth world is that persons who are masculine presenting, who identify as male, who are getting pregnant, are also having trouble being listened to in these medical societies because they're presenting as male, so they're giving off the energy to these medical environments that they're stronger, that they can tolerate things more, and that just simply is not the case. Some things don't change. We can change a lot of other things, but some things that don't change, and that's the process of birth. There is a growth that happens inside. There is a growth that happens at the uterus. There's a growth that happens at the outside of the vagina. It's all the same. That part of it doesn't change, which means the way it impacts us is the same. We're still going to have these pains. We still need to be listened to. We're still going to have some medical concerns that need to be addressed. We still need partners and people who love us in our circle who can advocate for us. And while when we talk about birth, we hate to talk about advocacy, but the reality is advocacy is needed when we're doing this outside of the home. So when I just said earlier that everybody's birth is not the same, right? So we're all going to have different needs, but some of our needs are the same, and we need people who are going to have the courage to speak up and stand up on our behalf when we have to go outside of our familial spaces, when we have to go inside the medical space because we have a predisposed condition, when we have a condition that needs to be managed by medicine. This is not a medicine dissing panel. Medicine has its place. That's why it develops. That's why we encourage our grandparents to take their medication. It has its place. But what also has its place is the advocacy and the support that we all will need. So it doesn't matter how we identify ourselves. Some things about birth remain the same. And that is a whole nother fight within itself, because we're still talking about people of color not being listened to, no matter what gender they identify with, no matter what sexuality they identify with. We still have some basic needs that need to be addressed. And I just want to speak from that as a birth worker. While we intersect all of these other things, we have some new concerns that we need to address, some things that we have to change our minds to, some things that we have to adapt to. And for those out there who are currently aspiring to be in the birth work world, who are trying to get to a place of where a lot of us are, you have to understand that it's just like customer service when you go in the store. When you go in the Kroger, you can't be like, man, I'm not finna sell you these groceries. You like grapes. I don't like grapes. Grapes are whack. Grapes are too sweet. They raise your sugar. Like, nobody asked you all that. Give me these grapes, right? So it's the same concept. It's the same concept. And I encourage anybody who's thinking about getting into any type of health work, period. These are things that you have to understand. You have to check your bias at the door. You have to check your bias. Otherwise, this work is not for you. Okay? This work is not for you, and that's okay. We need people at Wawa's to check people out. Because I like Wawa's when I come up here. You know what I'm saying? I need a nice smile at the cashier. But in all seriousness, if you plan on getting into any type of community work, it doesn't, because all of this is community work, right? It all intersects. From birth justice to home justice, it all intersects. And what I just want to encourage you all to do is to check your bias at the door. This work is for the people, and it doesn't just mean the people who look like you or agree with you or share the same spirituality as you. It's for the people. If you is a people, it is for you.
Check your bias at the door. It's work. It's like never-ending work, just to identify and be honest about our own bias. And the honest piece is such a big deal, because I would say, especially for our elders, like, it is a new time. And there are adaptations that we need to make, but they're not going to stop being providers. They just might not be the right provider for you. And so just it comes back again to that team and like having an allied team that is truly aligning with you, like who you are, what you're about, what you want to see in your experience.
All right. So that was my final question. I just want to leave space for closing thoughts. If there's anything that you want to share about how people can get in contact with you, how people can stay connected with the work that you do, like, let's do that, and then share some final thoughts, I guess, or at least in the interlude thoughts, right? These are my finals. We got more thoughts.
I am on Instagram at Royal Mothering, at royalmothering.com, and at royalmothering@gmail.com. That's how you can find me. And yeah, my last thoughts are that to remind you that birth is sacred, birth is the return of an ancestor, birth is spiritual, birth can happen undisturbed in a natural physiological way. Your body is made for it. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, like I didn't have the opportunity to do that, that does not mean that you won't know a friend or a sister or a cousin. Pass on what you learned here today to them. Thank you.
But don't pass your trauma. Sorry. Don't tell your scariest story to a mama who's pregnant, about to be pregnant. Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
Resist.
Yeah. It's been wonderful to be here. I'm not on social media, or not properly, but I am the co-founder of National Black Midwife, which is Nicole Deggins does that. It actually is a directory for the midwives and doulas who have signed up on it, so you can look up by state, like who's around you, because sometimes we don't even know the folks that are in our own areas. So I will plug, I'm at VCU right now and doing VBACs all the time, holding down, like, it's a true midwifery practice. We're not just like pretending to be a birth center, to have a birth center with all these rules where you're always ruling out. It's just, if you're committed to being in this process and you want support, then I'm gonna ride for you. And so come see me, especially if there's any additional risk factor that risks you out. I had a home birth. I love home birth. And there's so many ways to birth a baby. But if your team needs to be in the hospital and you are here, come find me. Okay, VCU Midwives. And lastly, I just want to say that I have been saying no to everything. I told Kaya, like, my father, may he rest in power, transitioned. It'll be his 40th day, and in my culture, the 40th day is where we really honor that day. And so this opportunity came, and I know that he likes for me to be out and to be talking, and so I'm here to honor him. Thank you.
My final thought is something that we didn't mention in that holistic approach to improving the health of our community is environmental justice. And, love the Mother Earth. Because as far as we know at this point, this is the only human life-sustaining planet that we have access to. And with the extreme weather events that we are seeing now and will continue to see exponentially, thank you for listening to us today, and know that you could very well be the expert in the room in an emergency situation. Please stand up and take on that responsibility. And remember what we've said today, and perhaps you will be inspired to learn more. But you may be the only one in the room that knows anything. But you can catch a baby on it, If she feel like she got a poop, it might be the baby coming. Oh, just put the baby on the titty. If there's nothing else to give the baby, put the baby on the titty. Oh, is there, the lady down the street just had a baby. Maybe she's breastfeeding. Maybe we can take this baby over to this baby. So you got to think outside the box in emergency situations, and we will be seeing more and more of those. Thank you. I don't have social media. But I do want to let you know that the Virginia Department of Health, if you just Google VDH and breastfeeding, you will see a lot of resources there. One is a guide to relaxation, because that's your new word of the day, relaxation. And there's a number of resources there, and you can find me and through the health department as well. But there are resources there that I would like you all to look at, read, absorb, and share.
First of all, giving honor to your father. Thank you for sharing space with us on this sacred day. Doing the work of your father, honoring your ancestors, and I want to acknowledge you for that. And so thank you for sharing space with us on this sacred day. Speaking of which, being that this is RBA's Black Breastfeeding Week, on October 16th, 2023, I will be at 23 years of wet nursing, giving to milk banks, all that stuff. I'm 44 years old. And on my oldest son's 23rd birthday, I will be concluding that service. I will be closing up the shop. And in my culture, I practice Yoruba. Hey, baby. Hey, young man. In my culture, I practice Yoruba, Ifa. And 2 + 3 is 5, and that equates to Oshun. Oshun is who bring forth the babies. So I just figured that's a good time to go ahead and shut it down. So happy Black Breastfeeding Week to all of you who have breastfed and are breastfeeding or plan to breastfeed. you have a resource here. And this young lady next to me, I hope you access that resource. You can find me everywhere at Beretta Scott King and Real Whole. That's RealWhole on all the socials, the .coms, the .orgs, whatever. You can just Google it, child, I'll come up. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm gonna be honest, I'm very slow when it comes to email, but about a week later, you'll hear from me, you know. Just reach out to me. You have a plethora of resources up here. We're available, we're present, and we'll be honored to serve you. Thank you for having me all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. I love it up here, man. This is my, when we did the first time, 27? Six, something like that. Yeah, so, yeah. Been down a long time with Brother Manifest.
Just reminded me, I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that midwifery care is not only for when you're having a baby, it's also for well women care. So we have to kind of understand the context that an OB is a surgeon. And so unless you're in need of emergency surgery, perhaps a midwife can meet your needs for your gynecological health. And that's whether you have a baby or not. So get to know your local midwives.
Shout out to my wife, who is a student midwife. She will be accepting contact information and all the things. And she'll be out here like midwifing. So thank you all for joining us. This will be the conclusion of our panel on Black maternal health. Y'all give it up for all my panelists here.